Hi, my name is Hilke and I am the knitter behind Halu the Ugly Bunny. I am a sock knitting pattern designer, and when I'm not knitting socks, I usually make videos for this channel. Today I thought I would show you a little bit what I've been knitting in the past few months, and I thought this would also be a good opportunity to share my knitting resolution for 2024 and to show you how I've been storing my yarn. Okay, so everything started, I think, in the fall of last year when I looked at my stash and I realized that I have 3.5 kilograms of sock yarn. And this is even more shocking when you realize that I not only have sock yarn, I also have yarn for like sweaters and shawls, and my sock yarn stash is like, part of it is for professional use, so for my knitting patterns, and then the other part is my personal stash, and the 3.5 kilograms, that is just my personal stash. So yeah, I think nobody actually needs 3.5 kilograms of sock yarn, so I think that has to change. And obviously the most fun idea I had to change that was to knit more socks. So that's basically what I've been doing. But before I show you the socks, I thought I would also talk about how I store my yarn. And the thing is, there are different people out there with different beliefs when it comes to storing yarn. And there are people who store their yarn in airtight containers because they are afraid of bugs getting inside of the yarn. And there are people out there who are like, you cannot store the yarn in airtight containers because yarn has like moisture in it and it needs to breathe, so you can only store it in containers that let the air in. So for me, it's like I basically do both. Like I have part of my stash that is in containers, and then I have part of it that's like pretty much out in the open, because we are very fortunate that we do not have problems with bugs in our apartment. And also the temperature in here is pretty constant. Like we use our radiator in the winter, obviously, but our apartment also in the summer doesn't get too hot. So I feel like there's not really much change. And I also try to store my yarn in dark places that don't get too cold, so far I haven't had any problems. So the only thing that I am actually concerned with when I store my yarn is that it doesn't lose its shape. And second of all, that it's actually organized, because obviously if you cannot find the yarn, then you also won't use it. So what I did before I started was I took my yarn stash and I organized it by brand, and my sock yarn is in a drawer. So what I did was I made these little organizers. They look like this, and I used a free sewing pattern online by Petidou. And yeah, so I made these myself because I also had fabric in my stash that I no longer use. So yeah, I thought one project and I can get rid of two things, like my yarn stash and my fabric stash. Okay, so what I basically did was I just took the yarn that was from the same brand. I put them in here. I have, I think, 8 of these organizers in my drawer, so I can basically organize my entire stash, which is nice. And these are kind of like, this is a pretty good example. I have I have sock yarn that is like self-patterning like this, but then I also have a lot of yarn that is just one color, like this one. And this is basically, you can already tell, like, this is my problem. I'm not really an impulsive buyer. Like, I don't go out and be like, oh, this is beautiful, I have to have this yarn, even though I don't have a project in mind. But I tend to go out, and for every new project, I also buy new yarn. So I probably already bought one skein for a project that then, didn't happen. And then I bought another skein for the next project. And that's why I have so much freaking yarn. So yeah, I have these little organizers, and what I did was I made lists, and these lists are not fancy. Like, I basically just took a piece of paper and I wrote down the name of the company and then also the colors that I have, because sometimes I will lose like these little bands that come with the yarn, and then I will no longer know what kind of color this was. So I thought the list would help with that. The only problem is that sometimes there will be a brand and I will have maybe 4 different shades of blue, and then I still won't know which blue this actually is. And also what I do, I'm just looking for the right skein to show you, but I cannot really, there it is. For me, this happens a lot. Like, when the skein gets really small, it kind of collapses and then it's no longer nice to use. And what I do then is I basically just wind the yarn into these small balls that are easier to use. And the thing that I started doing is I made these little tags and I just put down like the brand and the color, and then, you know, I punch a hole in it and I will just thread the yarn through this tag. And now if I want to use this yarn, you know, I will just knit with it, and then the tag will fall down to the ball. And in most of the cases, the tag does fall down to the ball, so it doesn't really interfere with my knitting. Sometimes I have to like push it back down, but that very rarely happens. So I am in the process of implementing this for my entire stash, and then when I'm done with this, I'm just, you know, winding it up again, and then I put the yarn end, and I will just, hope you can see this, like I have this little thingy here, and then, you know, I will just wrap it around this a couple of times, and then this is already ready to go back into my stash, and it doesn't really come undone, you know. But yeah, so I try to keep most of the yarn that I buy in their original form. Like, I would usually keep them like this or in skeins until I use it. And then, you know, like I told you, like if I have these little, they're not scraps, but just like if I just only have short amount of it left, then I will probably wind it into a ball. I try to not make them too tight, because then the yarn will lose a little bit of its elasticity. But for me, I find that the balls are just easier to store and also to take with me, because I find that cakes tend to get undone. So yeah, I prefer it like that. And this is how I have been storing my yarn. So now onto the socks. So I have been knitting quite a lot of socks, but I'm not sure how interesting all of them are, because I started with the self-patterning yarn, so something like this. And this is like, I mean, this is the self-patterning part, and I combined it with a contrasting color for the cuff, for the heel, and also for the toes, because, well, first of all, this was a set. Like, I got this at one time from Aldi, and they sold sets of like one like self-patterning yarn and then also one solid colored yarn, and you can combine them. And I bought, I think, all 3 sets of them because the colors were great. Also, the quality is very nice. But I also do it like this because I do have quite a lot of this this colorful yarn where I do not have enough left for an entire pair of socks, but I also have more than I would usually store for like scrappy socks. So if there's like 40 grams of it left, then I will use this kind of technique to use it up, because I think it's quite nice, it looks good, and yeah, then you can use like most of it up. And I also have this in another color, so this is also by Aldi. So that is this color. And as you can see, I also did it here. So I used the same color that came with it. So here we have this is a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. We have this is a heel with a knit with a flap, and this is a slip stitch rib. And at the end we have a rounded toe, which is also quite nice. This is like one of my favorite toes, obviously. And the thing is, so the sets were really nice, but yeah, I feel like when you buy these sets that are like ready to use and they also have knitting needles in them, the knitting needles always suck. Like they have these metal needles in them. And I mean, I also use metal needles. I love metal needles, but the ones that are in there, they remind me of bicycle spokes, because I once sat down at my grandpa's house and I was knitting, and he told me that when he was a child, his mother, because they didn't have a lot of money and they had 12 kids, she used bicycle spokes to knit. And back then they didn't have like these mid-calf socks, so their socks would go up to their knees. And like I said, they have 12 kids, and yeah, I find it quite extraordinary that she was knitting socks for all of them and she used bicycle spokes. So now every time I see the needles that are usually in these kind of sets, I think of that story. So yeah, this is another pair that I've knitted. This is actually, I did have enough of this left to do a full pair of socks. The thing is just I lost the band, so I didn't want to use it for that. And I combined it with purple here. So also I think this is, yeah, knit 2 purl 2. Then here we have a short row heel. And this is, this is the alternate rounded toe, which is my favorite toe shape right now, because it does have kind of the same shape as the rounded toe. So this is quite nice. I hope you can see this. It's hard to show it like this, but it is quite round. But it is easier to knit than the rounded toe, because you just start to, I mean, the rounded toe you decrease in every fourth, and then in every third, and then every other, and then in every round. And here you start with decreasing in every other round, and then once you only have half of the stitches left, you switch to decreasing in every round. And I think that it's easier to be consistent if you always do it like this. So yeah, that's what I prefer lately. And this is the same yarn, but I just combined it with another color. I have a knit 1 purl 1 ribbing here, and I have, well, the heel I will show you in a minute again. But what I want to show you is I have made these little bands here for the socks, and I did this in Adobe. And I mean, this is in German, right? So it's basically just telling you what kind of size it is and also who made it. So it's by me, surprise. But I did it like this because I saw it on some project where you could knit socks and then donate them. And I'm not sure where it was, but actually, well, they did put the sizes and then also the knitter's name on them. And I thought that was quite nice. And the thing is, I am now knitting all of these socks, but I don't really know what to do with them yet. I think it would just be nice to have a box of yarn so that every time I need a gift and I feel like, oh, you know what, I want to make a pair of socks for that person, that I can now have a place where I can just, you know, reach into and get a pair of socks out of it. And because, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person who is like this, but I feel like I always get the idea of knitting a pair for someone else when it's too late to do that. So it's like maybe 5 days before their birthday and I'm like, oh, I could have made them socks. So hopefully in the future that will change. And yeah, so that is like the first thing why I think this box would be nice. But also every fall I sit at home and I think, you know what, it would be really nice to knit a lot of socks this winter and donate them. And then I start, and after 6 weeks or something, I will maybe have 2 pairs of socks left done, because I kind of overestimate how fast I am knitting. So I get very, very few pairs of socks done, and then I'm like, you know what, it doesn't make sense to send them in because it's only 2 pairs, and then, you know, I will just yeah, get on with it and then go to another project. And that is very sad. Like, I want to donate some socks, and if I have a box, then I can finally do it, I think. I hope, I really do hope. So yeah, now I will show you. I mean, there's one more pair, which is like, you know, these bigger stripes here. And I did use a RICO design yarn for this. This is all tweed, but I mean, the construction is not very, I mean, this is a short row heel without any rounds in between. So if you like these kind of heels, I mean, it is also one of my favorite. You can find instructions for it on my channel, but aside from that, there's not much going on here. But the last pair that I want to show you is actually, I think, the most interesting pair, because it is completely striped. And for the other ones, I used, you know, the self-patterning yarn, but here I thought it would be nice to also use up the smaller pieces of yarn that I have. And I think this is also a good way to use up yarn that is not like super nice, because this is like, I mean, striped socks is kind of like the cheerleader effect for yarn, because I feel like they always look good. And so that's why I used it for these, because I mean, they're all gray and, you know, different kind of blue tones. And yeah, I like the result, and I will definitely make more of these. I'm just starting with the other patterns first, because obviously I have more left from those. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a sneak peek of one of the next videos, because I have also been working on this sock, and this is also a drops yarn. But here we have a different kind of heel. This is, the other ones were all Dutch heels, and this one here is actually a French heel. And you can see here we have a eye of partridge heel. And the toe is actually more interesting, because we have a wedge toe that is also reinforced. So I also used the eye of partridge stitch for the wedge toe, which is quite nice, because I mean, for me, it's like this. I am usually like, I don't think I ever got a hole in one of my socks, but my boyfriend, he gets holes in his socks after a few years. So I always have to mend them, and he usually gets holes around the heel, but also around the toe. So I am now very happy that I have found a way to reinforce the toe without using any extra yarn, because that's what I had been doing previously. Yeah, so those were the socks. I also want to quickly show you what I have been working on, like for the next designs, because we do have Valentine's Day coming up. So this is the design that I'm currently working on. You can see here we have 2 bunnies, and we have these little hearts here in orange and some hearts here, and we have these cute little twists or braids here at the top for the cuff, which were quite nice. I made them without using a cable needle. And here we have the reinforced French heel again. And yeah, there will be a little bit of color work at the foot, but yeah, you will see that when it's done. Oh, and also, I mean, the bunnies, this is basically the back of the bunny, right? So there will also be a small heart here at the bottom, but I will add that with duplicate stitch in the end, because I am not too keen of using 3 colors in one round. So I will always try to avoid that whenever I can. Yeah, those were the current projects, and this is the last sock design that I did, and these are called Whodunit Whiskers socks. And the pattern went online a couple of days ago, and the story behind this design is, I mean, obviously you can see there is these little mustaches here, and I went to the cinema in the fall and I watched A Haunting in Venice, and I am kind of a huge Agatha Christie fan, and I especially like, I mean, I do like, well, I think I like all of the movies, but I also really like the newer ones with Kenneth Branagh. And so I went, and not only, I mean, I like the movies, but also like the aesthetics of it, the colors that they're using. And the thing that really struck me in this movie was the blue tones. So what I did was, I thought, you know what, it has to be obviously a mustache, but then I thought I would also combine it with a very vibrant blue, which I did here, and then the light beige is, you know, because Hercule Poirot, he has these very light blonde, kind of grayish, you know, I think it's, is it grayish? I think the hair, well, that's what I'm thinking when I look at it. So anyway, that's why I chose the colors. And we have also a French heel with the slip stitch rib here. And my favorite detail is we finally have a sole gusset. I saw this one on a couple of socks, and for months I thought to myself, you know what, you have to use it in one of the designs. So for this design I finally did, and I think it's a really nice way to get one more detail into the sock, but also it obviously helps with the designing, because now the gusset no longer interrupts the design along the foot, which is nice. So yeah, this was the latest design. I loved making these. I also love designing these, and the thing that I now enjoy most about them is how soft they are. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the design, but I have used Drops Nord yarn for these, and it's not really a sock yarn. So I mean, it's not meant to be a sock yarn, but it is made from wool and alpaca and nylon, you know, polyamide. I'm not quite sure how you Americans or English people say it, but in Germany we say polyamide. So yeah, you can definitely use it as a sock yarn, and it has 170 meters per 50 grams. So it's a little bit thicker than what you might be used to, but it is really nice to knit with, and thanks to the alpaca, it is very soft. And also, it does have this little effect, this little halo effect. So you'll have these little hairs sticking out. I don't know if you are able to see it, but it is really nice. Like, I really, really like it. And also I love the colors. And so these make me very, very happy. Yeah, I think that was actually all that I wanted to show you. I am planning on maybe hosting a knit along soonish. I'm not sure when, because I do have other plans for March, but I think it would be nice to have a knit along for, you know, using up sock yarn, so that everyone can be happy about the fact that they have used some of their stash. And also it would be a nice way to kind of quantify the project, because I mean, now I'm just like, well, I want to knit more socks, but it would be nice to say, I want to knit 30 rounds per day, or I want to make one pair a week or something like that. And at the end, you know, if someone wants to participate, we can all compare notes and be like, you know what, we did it. And then, yeah, maybe give the socks away to someone who will, you know, enjoy them, maybe donate them. And yeah, I think that would be nice, but we'll see. Maybe in April or something. Yeah, if you have any ideas, if you would be interested in that, you can leave a comment below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I am not sure how often I will be doing these kind of videos in the future. I have some ideas for other videos, because I sometimes get questions about topics that I can't really explain when I'm sitting at the desk, you know, like filming myself from the top. So I think these more talkative videos would be more suited for that, but yeah, we'll see. So, okay, I wish you a nice rest of your day, and I hope you will find some time to knit today, and I'll see you soon. Bye!